going to be talking to Gerald Celente. He's on the line with us right now. Gerald Celente, of course, is the author of Trends Journal, and you can find that at trendsresearch.com. He's a forecaster, publisher of Trends Journal, business consultant, author who makes predictions about the global financial markets. And, of course, he had a very interesting prediction. That's why we wanted to have him on several years ago about what's going on right now with Saudi Arabia and Yemeni. He predicted that, quote, cross-border fighting between Saudi Arabia and Yemeni rebels is precisely the type of conflict that could destabilize the world's oil markets. Should the fighting intensify, the Saudis risk an attack on their oil facilities, which could curtail supplies, drive prices higher, and seriously damage the already imperiled world economy. So joining us now is Gerald Celente. Welcome, Gerald.
Thank you for having me.
Interesting forecast, and it's interesting what's happened this last week with Saudi Arabia going after the Yemeni rebels. Break that down for the audience, exactly what's happened there and what you think is going to be the consequences of that.
Yes, that quote that you read was from our Trends Journal back in 2009. And the Houthi insurgency in Yemen, this has been going on for decades. And what people don't understand is that, you know, this all began with the carve-up of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, and there's destabilization in that area ever since. So this isn't a new occurrence. But David, what's going on is being sold to the public as Houthis with the Iranians. And the Sunnis, or, you know, they're the Saudis, and they're the good folks that the United States is helping on this deal. Here is the outrage and the overt imperialism that's happening in this country and colonization that we have no part of. The clown that plays ambassador to the United States from Saudi Arabia made the announcement last week. You know where from? No, not the capital of Saudi Arabia, from the capital of the United States, Washington. This guy gets on the news out of Washington, D.C. I mean, we're talking about, okay, boys and girls, if you believe that the princess kissed the frog, and the frog was really the king, then you'll like the name the king of Saudi Arabia. But how about let's calling him a dictator? This country, this family has been ruling this joint. They make the announcement that the king and the royal family is going to restore the guy Hadi, who the United States and Saudi Arabia propped up there in Yemen as the new dictator following the old dictator. They call it, quote, the legitimate government. Now let's get this straight. Saudi Arabia is one country, Yemen's another country. Who is Saudi Arabia to say what should be going on in Yemen? So you could see what's going on here. And again, this was done from the United States. It's a disgrace that they let this clown address out from the Washington, D.C., that Saudi Arabia is going to restore the legitimate government of Yemen. What, are they going to do it in between beheading people? What, did they behead about 34 already this year? The dictatorship of Saudi Arabia is saying what should be going on in Yemen, and the United States is providing intelligence and reconnaissance information to help the king.
Oh, yeah, they're absolutely joined at the hip, the U.S. intelligence agencies in Saudi Arabia. I thought it was interesting, Glenn Greenwald, I'll paraphrase him here, but in terms of this announcement, you know, as you pointed out, the amazing announcement that they announced that they're invading into Yemen, not from the capital of Saudi Arabia, but from Washington. And Glenn Greenwald said, you know, you're pretty far into an empire when they start a new war and it isn't even newsworthy. They don't even pick this information up throughout most of the news cycle press.
No, and then look what else is going on. You have 10 other countries, the so-called Arab League, that overthrew Gaddafi, destabilizing Syria. You know, this thing's been going on for how long? And now they're invading another country. And people don't have any idea of the history of this. I want to read to you two quotes to put this into context, because the prostitute media, or as Alex Jones called them, the media whores, and I'm 100% behind them, they're media whores. They're no more than lowlifes that suck up, bow down to pass out the information that's given to them so they could serve their corporate whores, their corporate whore masters. And the Washington Johns. This is from the former American ambassador to Yemen. All right, so now here's a guy that you would expect to toe the line. His name is Stephen Seche, S-E-C-H-E. And he said that the Houthis had rarely defined their struggles in Yemen in sectarian terms, and that their ties to Iran had been overstated by Gulf nations. Quote, the Saudis and the Sunnis have made this a sectarian issue, he said. This military campaign is the Sunni world saying to Iran, get out of our backyard. As he's saying here, there is no connection. To further make the non-connection between Iran and the Houthis, this is from Philip Hammond, the British Foreign Secretary. He said last Friday, the Houthis are not Iranian proxies. So, you're hearing it right from the top, but they're selling it as that so we could easily hate them because Iranians bad, them Saudis are good. I mean, after all, you saw our president bow down and kiss the Saudis' ring. You saw all of these past Secretary of States go over and salute the new king. You think that everybody would be going there to kiss the ring of the beheader-in-chief if their major export was broccoli? The immorality of this is disgusting.
Yeah, it's amazing that, we've seen these beheading videos from ISIS. Many of them look very staged. But there are real beheadings going on in Saudi Arabia constantly. They've beheaded far more people than ISIS or ISIL ever have. And yet there are hard and fast allies. I think it's also interesting, Gerald, that nobody in America, in the general public, they look at this as some monolithic Muslim state, and they have no idea of the differences and the infighting that's going on with these different factions within Islam, between the Sunnis, the Shias, the Wahhabists. They have no idea what's behind that. They have no idea about the geopolitical alliances that are being made with the U.S., with Saudi Arabia. They're just going with whatever they're told on Fox News.
And Fox News and all the rest. Mm-hmm. I mean, you read every one of these articles, and it's Iranian-backed Houthis. Yeah. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. This thing has been going on now for decades. The revolution really began to break out in the 1960s. And you've had this guy who left Salah. He was dictator-in-chief from 1990 to 2011. You know, so this thing's been going on for a long time. And by the way, back in the 60s, Egypt tried to invade Yemen. Now remember, this is the poorest country in the area. You know, these Saudis are bombing the place. They're bombing mud huts. They've killed over, I think it's about 120 people already. And it's civilians. So when the Saudis tried to do it, they call it, the Egyptians, when they tried to invade back in the 60s, they called it the Egyptian Vietnam. Egypt lost about 26,000 men. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And back when I wrote that piece in the Trends Journal that you quoted from, you already saw the Saudis try to invade that area of northern Yemen where it borders the Saudi border, and they lost about 140 men. The Saudis did. So now here's the blowback, David, that no one's talking about. You know, as they used to say in the Bronx, payback's a bitch. You're blowing up this joint. You have several million Yemenis living in Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, you're going to start seeing what they're going to call terrorist attacks. in Saudi Arabia. So all of a sudden they start blowing up oil fields, or blowing up the kings, people, and you're going to see this thing really start to expand.
Yeah,
and
we've
that's
already
what they're
seen.
not talking about.
We've already seen a lot of the American drone strikes done by Obama into Yemen, haven't we?
Yes, and again, that's the reason why, another reason why they hate us.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, Obama, I mean, it's all against international law. There is no international law. Hey, where's the United Nations on this deal? What if all of a sudden the Secretary General has lockjaw? You got 10 countries invading a sovereign nation who's done nothing to those other countries, and there's no outrage? All they can keep talking about is this German airliner that went down.
Mm-hmm.
But all these other people being slaughtered and an attack by foreign nations into another nation, that's not making the news in an area that has become totally destabilized with the war in Iraq, the war in Libya, the war in Syria, now in Yemen. In Egypt, by the way, they're getting re-involved in this as well. The dictatorship, the new president, I forgot. It was a military coup, but we're not allowed to say that so we can keep giving them our money, although that's against the law in the United States. They're involved in this now as well. So this thing is going to destabilize the entire region, and you're going to start seeing blowback big time.
Yeah, I want to continue this as we come back from the break. As you pointed out, this was Egypt's Vietnam. The question is, will it be another Vietnam for America? Will America get pulled into this conflict along with Saudi Arabia, our close ally? Stay with us. We'll be talking to Gerald Celente of Trends Research.
By now you know that
TrendsResearch.com. We've been talking about the situation in Yemen. And, of course, the United States government has been there for quite some time with an assassination campaign. And as part of that, we've had a massive number of civilian casualties, innocent people dying. Of course, in Pentagon speak, we have a disposition matrix that caused collateral damage. I guess that's just the way we would dismiss all of this pain and suffering that we're causing. All of the pushback, the blowback that is going to be coming our way from people that we have oppressed and attacked. And now we're doing this as part of Saudi Arabia. It's being sold as being against the Iranians. But Gerald predicted this 6 years ago in Trends Research. And we're going to get back to that in just a moment. Before we do, I want to let you know that we now have Super Male Vitality back in stock. It was sold out. We had it on special beginning of the year, so it's been sold out for several weeks, but it's now back in a new formulation. It's new, more powerful, more enhanced, and we're getting very good feedback. We've had a lot of reviews. We put both the good and the bad reviews up on the site. We've got over 90% positive. People are saying that a lot of people are saying they find it as replacement to coffee in the morning for energy. So that's Super Male Vitality. You can find that at InfoWarsLife.com. Gerald, you were pointing out just before in the last segment that Egypt has already gone into Yemen once, decided that they would be able to put that down. It was Egypt's Vietnam. I think it's very interesting, especially as we see this training that's going on with Jade Helm and others. Over and over again, we see that the big militaries, as part of this asymmetric warfare, they're losing these wars again and again and again. Even though they have the massive military equipment, the massive armies, people who are being oppressed will fight to the last. Not to say that there won't be a massive casualty. It won't be very unbalanced. But they will continue to fight because they're the ones who are being oppressed. They're the ones who are being invaded. They're the ones who are being called insurgents in their own country. I don't think this is going to go well, but Gerald, do you think we're going to get drawn into this conflict? Is it going to be another Vietnam for us in Yemen?
I don't think with so-called boots on the ground. They like bombing, droning and bomb strikes. And it also should be, you made a good point, David, in that you said, despite all this money being spent, and correct me if I'm wrong in paraphrasing what you said, there is no victories to show for it.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right, now, let's get this straight, okay? Everybody that's listening, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Iraq, all losing deadly ventures. I believe I read it on Prison Planet. That you had a post up there that according to these physicians for social responsibility, some 2 million people have been killed in the last 10 years because the United States and its coalition of the willingly slaughtered